Nobody, when you first seen him play, could ever imagine the heights that he's got to with himself. He's been tremendous.
Irreplaceable is a word. He should retire the jersey.
Can't go in the shadow or footsteps of Henrik Larsson as you couldn't with Dalglish or with Johnson.
I've lost people before, recently no one half as good as him, but you've just got to get on with it.
You're going to try and make me cry, aren't you? We'll never replace him, we'll never be the likes of him again.
Done a joyous thing for Celtic. He's brought us so much fun, so much happiness. There'll be a lot of sad people when that man goes.
I'll still be chanting his name for years to come.
Nobody will replace Henrik. Nobody at all.
When Kenny Dalglish left Celtic for Liverpool in 1977, he left behind a dejected and devastated support.
I remember when Dalglish left, I went to my bed for 2 days solid.
Although the general consensus was that we would never see his likes again grace the number 7 Celtic jersey, there was still a quiet hope and expectation that someone would appear who would take the King's throne. And so it was that 20 years later, plucked from relative obscurity, Henrik Larsson arrived at Celtic Park. In 7 seasons, he became a legend, an icon, a hero. He became the King of Kings. When he left in 2004, it was to a river of tears. Just like with Dalglish, many thought that Larsson was irreplaceable. However, that hasn't stopped any new Celtic striker who knows where the back of the net is drawing comparisons with the sensational Swede. This summer, it will be 20 years since Larsson waved goodbye to an emotional Celtic support. While it is natural to hope that someone will appear from out the mists to replicate what Larsson did, I sadly believe it is futile to do so. In this video, I will try to break down what made Larsson Larsson and show how the state of the modern game means it is impossible that we will ever see his likes again at Celtic or in Scottish football.
And he's in there again. They let him loose and they suffered. There's a tremendous goal.
Inside the box, you couldn't really give him a chance because he will take it.
You don't become the King of Kings without doing something out of the ordinary, and Henrik Larsson's goal-scoring numbers bordered on the extraterrestrial. His magnificent tally of 242 goals in 313 appearances in all competitions makes him the club's third all-time leading goalscorer behind Bobby Lennox and Jimmy McGrory. With 35 goals in 56 European matches, he is Celtic's leading goalscorer in UEFA competitions. He played in 8 cup finals for the Hoops, scoring in all but 2 of them for a total of 11 goals, helping them to lift 4 of those trophies. This includes a hat-trick in the 2001 League Cup final and braces in the 2001 and 2004 Scottish Cup final victories and the 2003 UEFA Cup loss to Porto. He scored the most goals, 30 of them, against poor old Dunfermline, but most importantly, he consistently did it in the fixture that really mattered and bagged 15 in all competitions against Rangers. Ultra consistent, he was the SPL's top scorer for all but 2 of his 7 seasons at Celtic. His debut campaign in 99-2000 when he broke his leg. The King of Kings was a virtual guarantee of over 20 league goals a season. His most prolific campaign was the one after he recovered from his horror injury, where he bagged an unbelievable 35 in the league and 53 in all competitions. At his core, Henrik Larsson was a lethal goal poacher, and the majority of his goals came from within the penalty box. At times it seemed like he made himself invisible to opposition defenders before using his great anticipation, intuition and reactions to pop up and strike a killer blow. Although he wasn't the tallest of fellas, he could leap like a salmon and generate phenomenal power with his head while being extremely accurate, making him one of the most consistent and deadly headers of the ball of his generation. His talent for attacking the ball in the air from crosses was nurtured by hours of extra training sessions with mentor Mats Magnusson at Helsingborg. But he was much more than just a fox in the box. He was born to score goals and could hit screamers from distance as well. He oozed class on the ball and could take on and beat his man, as well as having a penchant for rounding the goalkeeper with a shimmy of his hips. I would probably say that most supporters' favourite Henrik goal was his unforgettable nutmeg on Rangers defender Bert Konterman, followed by a sumptuous chip over stranded Stefan Klos. Larsson was somewhat ahead of his time, and unlike most of the other great strikers of his era, it wasn't only scoring that Henrik concerned himself with.
But I don't see myself as just a striker staying up in the box and getting the goals. I like to link up as well. You can say I'm a modern striker in that way because I like to move a lot.
As much as he loved scoring goals, Henrik Larsson was the ultimate team player and was more than happy to set up his teammates if they were in a better position to score. An excellent passer, he set up countless goals with a beautiful slide rule pass or perfectly weighted through ball after dropping deep. He could also send in a tempting cross, just begging to be tucked away after dribbling with the ball out wide. He was composure personified in the box, and he would protect the ball, holding off defenders, waiting for the perfect moment to stroke it into the path of his teammate. He was great at link-up play and could knock the ball down or play one-touch flick-ons as well. Larsson racked up over 100 assists for Celtic, an average of 16 a season in all competitions across his 7 years at the club. With his seismic contributions to the team, it is safe to say that the Celtic Henrik Larsson left was in a much better position than the one he found.
I don't think anybody can ever question what he's gave this club.
Henrik is one of the Celtic greats.
He'd been a tremendous attribute to the Celtic.
Henrik's right up there in the first five.
Larsson was made immediately aware just how much pressure the team was under to win the league that season.
All the fans, as soon as you signed, said make sure they don't win 10 in a row.
It had been a miserable time for Celtic fans. Not only did they have to watch their greatest rivals shovel up title after title, but since their last league win in 1988, the team had only won 2 trophies, the Scottish Cup in 89 and then 95. After an infamously inauspicious debut,
Henrik Larsson. Oh, given away. It's Chick Charnley. What a hit!
and a subsequently slow start to life at Celtic Park, Larsson found his feet and bagged 16 league goals, including the most important one of all, the opening goal of the must-win final league game of the season against St Johnstone.
What a start for Celtic! 2 minutes gone, and Larsson makes the breakthrough,
which sent Celtic on their way to a 2-0 victory and saw them crowned champions, stopping the dreaded 10 in a row. He had scored in the 3-0 League Cup final win over Dundee United earlier in the season to make it a double in his debut campaign. In the 6 years that followed, Larsson was a key figure in a very successful period for Celtic and helped to add 3 more league titles, 1 more League Cup and 2 Scottish Cups to the silverware cabinet. This included a first treble in over 30 years in 2001. He brought smiles back to the faces of Celtic fans and created glorious memories that will forever be etched in folklore. He brought Celtic back to the level that they belonged to be at and helped them to make waves on the European stage, battling out with and beating the best of the best. Without Larsson, Celtic would never have made it to the UEFA Cup final in 2003. And without Larsson's 2 glorious goals, they would never have given Jose Mourinho's Champions League winners in waiting Porto such a stern test. It is still painful for Larsson and many others that the team never managed to go all the way. A truly world-class talent, he elevated not just Celtic's profile, but the profile of the Scottish game. He won the European Golden Boot in 2001 and placed 14th and 12th in the Ballon d'Or voting in 2001 and 2003 respectively. He is the Scottish top flight's highest scoring foreign player and undoubtedly the greatest import to ever grace Scottish football. From his dreadlocks to his tongue-out celebration, everything about him is iconic. However, as much as Celtic were in desperate need of a man like Henrik Larsson, so too was Larsson in need of a club like Celtic.
Celtic was the only team who was willing to take a gamble on me, to be honest.
After a reasonably successful first 2 seasons at Feyenoord, the arrival of manager Ari Hahn saw Henrik Larsson's time there turn sour. The two had a frosty relationship, which deteriorated so much that they wouldn't even say a single word to each other. Larsson wanted out. The problem was, nobody wanted him, and his only option seemed to be to head back to Sweden with his tail between his legs. Luckily though, the man who had brought Larsson to Feyenoord, Wim Jansen, became the manager of Celtic in 1997 and made it clear straight away who he wanted to sign. No one, not even Larsson himself, could have imagined how things would turn out. Celtic gave Henrik the platform and the trust and the love he needed to become the superstar he was destined to be. Larsson himself recently said this: "I've always said that it was at Celtic that I made myself as a player. That's where everybody saw me and saw my talents at a high level. So for me, that's the greatest period in my career in terms of playing and winning trophies. Whenever people ask me where was my best period, where did I like it the most, I always say Celtic." Larsson dedicated his prime footballing years, 7 magnificent years, to Celtic as he understood that he had a rare and special situation, and despite inevitable interest from elsewhere, he was never tempted by the prospect of a few extra pounds to leave before his time.
I was happy at Celtic. We had a good team. We played in Europe. 2003 we went to a European Cup final. I was playing with the Swedish national team on and off, and just to move down south out for a few more pounds in a week, it wasn't interesting for me because I saw what we had at Celtic.
Just about to turn 33 by the time he left, Larsson had successfully achieved immortality and will never be forgotten.
He doesn't lose his cool, he doesn't lose his patience at all. He must be a dream player for a teammate or a manager.
You tend to forget that he is an exceptional team player.
More important for me, he's been a good guy. He's a great player, but as a guy, he's first class.
It wasn't just Larsson's goals that made him an icon, it was his exemplary work rate which saw him give 100% and leave everything he had out there every match. Brave with the heart of a lion, he put his body on the line time and again for the club. Ask anyone who managed or played with Henrik and they all say the same thing.
He always put the team in the first hand.
He was prepared to go and work for the team.
He works his socks off for the team. He's a great team player.
He prepared very well, he was very concentrated. As we talked about earlier, he was very team-oriented.
He's consummate professional.
When Larsson suffered his horrific leg break in 1999, he was told that he may never be the same player he once was. With an exemplary attitude and mindset, he shocked them all by returning to full fitness after just 7 months, going on to have the best individual season of his career. Playing for either of the old firm means constant pressure and scrutiny, with many crumbling under this weight. Larsson had the right mentality to deal with it all. His was a winner's mentality, and his teammates looked to him for inspiration. He set high standards and was a role model to young players coming through like Sean Maloney. Off the pitch, he's a stand-up guy, funny, laid back, warm and approachable, humble, down to earth and extremely modest. His complete lack of an ego is surprising, given the fact he was and is worshipped as a god the world over, and saw his face constantly splashed across the back pages. He recognised that he would never be where he was without top-class players around him, and whenever he went up to accept one of the many personal accolades he received during his career, he always paid respect to his teammates.
Massive total, can you believe you did that?
No, not really. You need a little bit of luck as well, and good teammates as well.
For such a legendary player, Celtic must surely have broken the bank to bring him to Glasgow.
It was a bit of a bargain at the time. One of the bargains in Celtic's history anyway.
It was a coup, a commercial coup of staggering proportions.
Just like his goals, one of the first things people mention when they talk about Henrik Larsson is his transfer fee. Brought in for the minuscule price of £650,000, Larsson turned out to be one of the bargains of the century. And he wasn't just a bargain in terms of the European markets, but for Scottish football as well. The tiny fee has also been gleefully used by Celtic fans to wind up Rangers supporters. Desperate to replicate what the Hoops had with Larsson, David Murray broke the Scottish transfer record, dropping £12 million on Norwegian hitman Tore Andre Flo from Chelsea. He may have cost almost 20 times what Larsson did, but he wasn't able to have nearly half the impact and was sold to Sunderland after only 2 years. To this day, Flo's fee stands as a monument to Rangers' financial folly of the period, whereas Larsson goes down as one of the best pieces of business ever conducted in the sport. However, there were still some who looked to belittle all that the King of Kings achieved because he did it playing in Scotland.
All the time you talk about Ronaldinho, Eto'o and people like that. Talk about the proper people sometimes makes a difference, and that was Henrik Larsson tonight.
Maligned, misunderstood and disrespected, Scottish football has long been looked down upon down south and across Europe. Despite the fact he scored against 2 Premier League clubs on the road to the UEFA Cup final, Blackburn and Liverpool, there was always the suggestion that Larsson would never have put up the same kind of numbers playing in a quote-unquote proper league. His career after leaving Celtic put that argument to bed. He joined up with the resurgent Barcelona side and won La Liga in an injury-hit first season. In his second season, he scored 10 league goals, helping Barca to win the title again. However, he will always be remembered at the club for what he did in the Champions League final. Coming on as a sub with his team 1-0 down to Arsenal, Larsson's introduction changed the game and quite simply won the match for Barca as he showed his class with 2 wonderful assists. They say that real recognises real, and Ronaldinho had this to say about Larsson when it was confirmed he would be leaving the club. With Henrik leaving us at the end of the season, this club is losing a great scorer, no question, but I'm also losing a great friend. Henrik was my idol, and now that I've been playing next to him, it is fantastic. He returns to his hometown club Helsingborg in 2006, but was not yet done making an impact at the highest level. Sir Alex Ferguson, a long-time admirer of Larsson's, had unsuccessfully tried to sign him while at Celtic, and so jumped at the chance when he was offered the striker on a short-term loan. Although he only scored 3 goals, his quality and desire endeared him to the fans. He received a standing ovation from the supporters and his teammates after his final game. Ferguson had this to say about Larsson's short but sweet time at Old Trafford. On arrival, he seemed a bit of a cult figure with our players. players. They would say his name in odd tones. Cult status can vanish in 2 minutes if a player is not doing his job, yet Henrik retained that aura in his time with us. He's been fantastic for us. His professionalism, his attitude, everything he's done has been excellent. We would love him to stay, but obviously he has made his promise to his family and Helsingborg, and I think we should respect that. But I would have done anything to keep him. On his return to the dressing room after his final appearance, all the players stood up and applauded him, and the staff joined in. It takes some player to make that impact in 3 months. So this perfect storm of 7 magnificent characteristics made Larsson a Celtic great and a true legend of Scottish football. I'll now take a look at some of the recent pretenders to his throne to show why we will never be able to catch that type of lightning in a bottle ever again. Firstly, I'd like to mention players like Magic Zurawski, Jan Venneker of Hesselink, Jorgis Samaras, Scott McDonald and Gary Hooper. They were all good players for Celtic. Indeed, some even achieved cult status, but I don't think there were ever any serious suggestions they could ever reach Larsson's level.
Griffiths has made his run. Here he is! Ruthless from Lee Griffiths.
Lee Griffiths is the only player who has come close to having as prolific an individual season as Larsson posted regularly. His 31 league goals and 40 in all competitions in the 15-16 season made him the first player since the King of Kings to reach such a tally for Celtic. I do find it interesting that although the general consensus is that the overall quality and level of Scottish football has declined since Larsson's day, nobody has quite been able to consistently bang in the amount of goals that he did. Griffiths did also chip in with a notable number of assists for the team, 51 in 262 appearances. His impact is debatable as he arrived and ran riot at the time when Rangers were out of the top flight, although his goals in the 16-17 season did play their part in Celtic completing an historic unbeaten treble. His legacy is complicated. With 8 seasons at the club, I don't believe his loyalty can be questioned. However, it is his professionalism which really let him down. With a less than stellar approach to fitness and training, along with a string of controversies both on the pitch and in his personal life, he could not always be relied upon and never came close to replicating his 40-goal season. Costing a reported fee of £1 million, I'd say he qualifies as a bargain. Currently playing in a semi-pro Australian league, his stock has plummeted since leaving Celtic. I might court some controversy here, but I don't think Dembele gets a check mark when it comes to goals. He never scored more than 20 in the league, and in his disappointing second season, he managed just 9. Fair enough, he was only 19 when he signed, and injuries did hamper him, but he never stuck around to see if he could rack up a really eye-watering tally of goals. Assists again is a no for me. 18 in 94 games is decent, but nowhere near Larsson level. I think he had a good impact at Celtic. He was one of the main men in the 16-17 Invincible treble campaign, scoring big goals in the cups as well as against Rangers. He also bagged an excellent brace against Man City in the Champions League to show his quality. Dembele somewhat tarnished his own legacy due to the disrespectful way he left the club. Musa's head was turned after his first season at Celtic and his form nosedived before he left under a cloud, forcing through a move to Lyon. It is clear he saw the club as simply a stepping stone through which he could further his own career. Both his loyalty and professionalism can therefore be questioned. Signed for a nominal compensation fee in the hundreds of thousands and sold for £20 million, he represents an astonishing piece of business. At Lyon, his goals numbers were certainly respectable, but his time there was somewhat controversial and he was allowed to leave for free. He is currently spending his prime years in the Saudi Pro League and has yet to win a senior cap for France. Safe to say, his post-Celtic career has not gone as expected.
All of a sudden, Celtic are advancing. Edwards! Celtic are ahead!
Described by many Celtic greats as the best Celtic striker since Larsson, it is disappointing how Edwards' time at Celtic panned out. Although he never got more than 30 goals in all competitions, he was on 29 when the 1920 season was cut short with 8 league games remaining. He was in great form and surely would have ended up posting Larsson-esque numbers. In terms of creating great chances for the team, he's one of the best forwards Celtic have had since Larsson. He was vital in securing the treble. However, his legacy has been called into question because of the failed 10-in-a-row season where he was accused of downing tools. His lack of work rate has been criticised and he was often called lazy. He cost a club record fee and a decent chunk of the profit from his sale went to PSG. Since leaving Celtic, his career has stalled and then gone backwards, struggling to make an impact at first Crystal Palace and now Leicester.
Riley's header suddenly gives Kyogo a chance! Fabulous finish!
When Kyogo arrived, I personally felt that finally we had welcomed a new Larsson to paradise. I no longer feel that way. He was electric in his second season and scored 27 league goals and 34 in all, helping fire Celtic to a domestic treble. This included a brace against Rangers in the League Cup final and a goal against Cali Thistle in the Scottish Cup final. However, Kyogo has struggled for consistency since then and doesn't look to be someone who can get 20 league goals a season every season. I also feel that on the European stage he could be doing a lot more and is anonymous at times. Assist wise, he's also some way behind Larsson and could improve that area of his game. In terms of impact, I think he was huge. Brought in by a new and unproven manager after a disastrous trophyless season, he was vital in helping Celtic to a league and cup double, scoring a brilliant brace against Hibs in the final. I can't see his legacy at Celtic being anything but positive, but it remains to be seen whether he will go on to be considered a club legend. Kyogo is a model pro and is often praised for his attitude and work rate. Signed for £4.5 million, you could say that he was a bargain in the grand scheme of things, but he still represents a significant outlay. Kyogo is still at Celtic and looks to be very happy to stay at the club and help the cause. So this is the situation. Celtic will never be able to afford or attract a player of Larsson's calibre, and if we do stumble upon a gem, he will be enticed by the riches available elsewhere and scooped up after 2 seasons. Larsson himself said this: "You don't want to walk in another man's footsteps, you want to create your own." I agree, and I think that in many ways Kyogo is successfully doing that at the moment, forging his own path and becoming a hero and role model to a new generation of fans. However, in terms of everything we've talked about, it is clear Henrik Larsson, the king of kings, was truly the last of his kind.
When he goes, we have to replace. It's as simple as that, and you have to. Life goes on. There'll be a void there for a while, without a doubt, and it'll be one that we will find very difficult to replace.
Nobody will replace Henrik. Nobody at all.